Hi, and welcome to my walkthrough of putting together the AICODE101 smart car. So first I'll be unboxing it and showing each piece that should come with this kit. So first there should be a speaker, a USB speaker, and additionally there should be some plastic pieces that we'll be using in its construction, as well as 4 wheels, which of course will attach to our car. There will also be a small USB dongle, be sure not to lose this. Some electrical tape, and beneath this foam here, there should be the main board of your car, as we can see here. Okay, and then from there should be 4 motors. You can put those to the side, just make sure you have all 4 of them. They're all the same motor, so just keep track of those. Okay, and then lastly, and most importantly, there should be a box, a cardboard box inside of our box. Inside of this box is a variety of items, from screws to servos to wires. So this is probably the most important group of things you want to keep track of, because these are small and easy to lose. Okay? Now first, inside the box there should be 2 groups of servos inside of plastic bags, blue servos, and some little plastic pieces with those servos and small screws. Then there'll be a big pack of screws and another pack of screws that are not labeled that we'll be using. There'll be another plastic bag with some cables and a camera that we'll use later. There'll be 2 more electrostatic bags with some electronics inside of them. And then lastly, a screwdriver, as you can see here, and some wires. First off, we need this plastic bag with these long screws and these metal pieces here. Okay? We're going to use these for is holding our motors together. So there's multiple bags inside of this larger bag. So there should be 4 of them total. Okay? So just make sure you have all 4. And we'll just put those back to keep track of them. Okay? Also, we're going to have even more screws than that, of course. In this bag, there should be many screws. These ones are labeled, and we'll be identifying them by the names. So, for example, M2.5, 8 plus 6. So it's 2.5 by 8. These are labels we'll be using. So these should be easy to identify. But in this video, I'll be showing them specifically every time we need one. So no need to worry about tracking them down too much. But here is each one of them if you just want to double check you have all the ones I showed. Okay, so now let's get into the construction of our pie. So first I got a bowl here. So if we have any small parts, we're sure not to lose track of them, because it's very easy to accidentally misplace one. So please be careful of that, okay? So I'm going to go in my servo kit, and inside of my servo bag there is another smaller bag. We can put this blue servo to the side. What we're looking for is this small bag here that has 3-piece plastic wing pieces. You're going to get the one that has 2 wings to it but does not have those additional other 2 shorter ones sticking out. We'll be using that one. And that'll be the first piece we'll be attaching to our robot base. Okay? And then we're going to need the 2 small screws that are inside. There should be 3 total. There's an additional extra in there that we won't use, but we need at least 2 out of it. So as you can see, I put it in the bowl here to not lose track of these screws, because they're quite small. So just be careful, be sure not to lose those. Okay, and then you can put everything else back in the bag, because we will not be using those. Okay? Okay, now get this wing as I described it, and line it up with the designated marking on the board and make sure the screws can match the holes. And once you've had them matched, you can stick those screws that we took out of the bag right into the holes like that. As you can see, you're going to want them nice and tight, so use the included screwdriver to make sure they are fully in there, lined up well, and placed as follows. So here's what they should look like when you fully installed them. As you can see, flush with it, not sticking up or out. You might need to push down the wing as I'm describing it, or arm, to make sure that it's secured properly. Okay, next we're going to use this kit here with the metal pieces. Okay. We'll just take one out for now and we'll use the others later. So there should be some nuts, some bolts, and a metal piece as well. Okay. And we'll be installing one of these on each corner of our base as a way to install a motor for each wheel. Okay, now, as you can see, we've put those shorter bolts through the board at this location. So pause it if you aren't sure where this is on the board. And we will use those small bolts to thread through this metal piece here. Okay, so once you've hand screwed them into position, you can then use the included screwdriver to tighten the metal piece to the board like so, as you can see here. So make sure these are nice and tight to the board. Okay, then you should get the motor like so. And you'll notice there are two holes, if you get the right motor, that line up with the motor. So there's a hole through the motor and a hole through the metal piece, and then a wire that you want coming out the side that I show here. As you can see, it should be able to later connect into that socket. Okay? So you see, here's the other side where we're going to stick it through. Okay, so you can see on one side I have the screw that I sent through the long bolt, and on the other side I have this nut. So you want to stick the nut with your hand there and then tighten with the screwdriver the nut, or excuse me, the bolt. Okay, and I can better show the process here where I simply have it stuck on like that, and I use my finger to keep that nut in place, and then I tighten the bolt like so. So keep the nut from spinning and just tighten the bolt like so. Okay? And it will naturally tighten the bolt into the nut. Okay, so then attach the other one like so. We'll just be repeating the same steps here. So you can see I've attached the other motor to the other side, and simply repeated the steps on the other side of the board. And then, like I did before, stick that wire into the corresponding side. Okay? So now I do another corner. We'll just be doing the same thing for each corner. So I won't be showing this in as much detail. Just for each corresponding corner, install the metal piece and clip the wire into the correct side. Okay? So this is just the same steps repeated for each side and done like so. Okay, and then just make sure you have all of them clipped in properly and everything is nice and tight in there. Okay? So I'll just show on each side what it should look like. So look at not just the wires here, but how the nuts are tied into the bolts. Your board should look something like this when complete. Okay, so you want each motor on each side like so. So if it doesn't look like this, just go back and make sure you did the steps correctly. Okay? So now that we have all the motors attached to the board, we're going to get these wheels and we're going to align them with the motor. So these are not circular hubs, right? You can't just stick them in at any angle and they'll work. You need to find how to match the motor to the hub of the wheel, right? And then once you've matched that that shape, you can then attach it. So you can better see here how it's shaped. So I'll just stick it in like so. Nice and easy. You don't need to force it in there too hard, just nice and carefully attach everything. Okay, so again, repeat the same step on this wheel. It's the same process for each of the motors. In the same way, that's the same process for each of the wheels. And with that, we have all of the motors attached and all the wheels. So we can now get rolling with our car. Okay, now get this bag out. If you aren't clear what it is, you need these 3 LED looking devices at the bottom here. So you see it should look like this. You might be able to better see it when I rip it open. So there should be a perforated edge for you to open up the bag. Be careful not to damage the board. You want to do it nice and delicate. Just on these perforated edges, rip it open like that. And you want to pull out the electronic device that looks like this, okay? And so what we'll be doing in the next step is using this infrared detector. Okay. Okay, now we're going to use some of the screws from this group of screws. Okay, specifically, we are going to use these M3 by 30 standoffs, as you can see here. And then we're going to use these M3 by 6 screws, as you can see here. So these are the 2 we'll be using from there. Okay. Now get your car and stick the screw through this hole here. Make sure it's on the right side of on the correct side of the board, and screw the standoff into the bolt you have there. So when you've completed that, it should be nice and tight there. It's sticking on the bottom of your board, and you can see here I did the other side as well. Just make sure that standoff is attached using that bolt to the bottom of the board. Okay? And then on that standoff, we're going to stick this IR device using 2 more of those bolts into the standoffs. Okay, so now it should be installed like this. So make sure you didn't install it upside down. That's a possible accident people can make. You want to look like that. Okay, now you want to run the wire for this one. It's a nice and easy wire to run, so we'll just do it right now. Okay, so get the wire that looks like this, and we're going to run it from the IR detector to our main board. So from up top here down to here, but not in that exact direction. You'll see in a second how I do this. So you can see I have one side of the wire connected here and one side connected like this. so coming from this direction. And you want to make sure they click in. There's going to be specific orientation you have to have to these wires. You can't have them upside down or they won't click in. You need them to click in like that. If they're not going in, you need to flip them around. Okay, now get these M2.5 by 8 plus 6 standoffs. Okay, and stick them into the standoffs that are already on the board here. So each of these standoffs you'll screw into the standoffs on the board. So just give some extra clearance to our Pi above the device. So you see here, do the same thing for this one, like so. And again, on the other two, I'll screw them in. Okay, now attach your Pi to the standoffs, like so. The screws we use here are M2.5 by 4 screws, okay? Okay, so for each of these standoffs, we'll screw the corresponding place in the Pi in. And obviously, you want the Pi oriented like you can see in the picture here, where the USB ports are sticking at the back. You'll have a very bad time if you accidentally install this backwards, so just make sure you have it facing the right way, okay? And there's the completed board installed to the Pi. Okay, now we're going to now remove the acrylic plastic pieces from this sheet here. So be careful here to not damage any of the acrylic, because the acrylic is very fragile. If you're too rough with this, you can absolutely damage it in the following processes. Not just in pulling these out, but in the steps before and after, it's very possible damage. As you can see here, actually a piece of acrylic came loose from the sheet. Thankfully not from the board, just from the sheet. So it's not a piece we needed, but you need to be very careful here. You see I was a little too rough here and I easily snapped a piece of the acrylic right off of the sheet. So please be careful when doing not only this step, but the following steps. A suggestion when removing the pieces from the sheet is not to just kind of yank them out like I showed there, but instead the way you should do it is this tape here. You're going to pull out on both sides, like so, and like so, and be careful of the circular washers on the right here by my finger. Make sure those don't fall out in the process, but what you can do is you can pull out the tape, and you can see some of these washers actually come out. So I'm going to put them down, but actually a good place to put them is that bowl I discussed. You want to find a nice safe place like the bowl to keep these washers. You see, they're very easy to lose. I actually had one fall out there that I had to collect later. So please be careful of those there. Okay. Then again, just remove the tape, and you should be able to pull the acrylic pieces out This tape isn't even there for anything more than to secure them because they fall out so easily. As you can see there, actually this paper can be removed from the pieces, and that's okay. I won't be for the duration of this tutorial though. So if you notice your pieces are black while mine have this brown color, that's why. Okay, so here are the acrylic pieces. We'll move these out of the way because the piece we're going to use is this piece, as you can see here, and not this piece. Not this piece or this piece, but this piece, okay? So if you're not clear what these two pieces are, they should line up just like this, okay? Just like that. Okay, and then get the following nuts and bolts out of our screws here. So first, get the M3 nut. And the M3 by 14 bolt right here. It's able to screw. Okay, now you have to be very precise here. So what you're going to do is through this hole here, you can see there's a nut. You place that nut there. As you can see here, you screw the bolt and the nut together. So you have to be very careful, line this up, and it takes some practice. You might take a few attempts. Again, be very delicate with the acrylic, but you want to do it like this. Do not over tighten it. So you don't want to force it, okay? So we'll be using the M2 nut and the M2 by 10 bolt to attach the servo like shown into the piece we just built. So again, once it's fully screwed, it should look like this. So it should go through something like this. You use these nuts to tighten the servo to the acrylic piece we put together. And again, do not over tighten it, and make sure your wire is facing the right way as shown here. You don't want the servo facing the other way or the wire will be backwards. Okay? So just like this. Okay. Again, get the M2 by 10 bolt and the M2 nut and these pieces shown here. Okay, and then you're going to want to attach this piece of acrylic we got here through the M2 by 10 bolt to the acrylic piece we've just assembled. Okay, and then we'll of course use the nuts to attach the second servo with the wire facing the same way to the acrylic as shown here. So right where that area is, we want to make sure we have the nuts nice and tight on that. Okay, so the nuts should go like this. You want to make sure though that's nice and on there, or it could come loose, and you don't want that falling out and losing the nuts and then having your servo fall off. Okay? Okay, so now your completed acrylic piece should look like this, with the servos like so. Okay, now we're going to get the wires for the camera out from the kit. So there's a wire shown here. It has a little white marking on it and some text on it. We'll use that along with inside of the same bag there is a camera shown here. It'll be in an anti-static bag, and you can just slide that camera through like so and take it out of the bag, and we will be set with our camera. Okay, so you see there's a little piece of plastic that we'll remove later. Leave that on for now. You don't want to take off that lens cover, okay? going to leave that lens cover there. Okay. Then get the ultrasonic sensor, which we'll also be using in the next step. We'll be attaching the ultrasonic sensor to the piece we'll be assembling next. So get the camera and the ultrasonic sensor. Okay, now get these two plastic acrylic pieces here. Specifically, the first one I'm going to be working with is the one to my right. We will be not using these yet. We'll get to those later, but pretty soon. Okay, and then here we'll be using these M1.4 by 5 self-tapping screws. Okay, so attach 4 of them to the camera to this piece here, like so. Having the camera with the white port facing the bottom. And then on top of that, have the ultrasonic sensor screwed in as well, using the same M1.4 by 5 self-tapping screws. So it should now look like this. Okay, now see this little piece of plastic over the camera? At this point, we can carefully remove that from the camera. This is just protecting our lens. We can remove that now. Okay, now get the face piece here, the other face piece, and the M3 by 14 bolts, and stick the acrylic washers through the bolts, like so. Remember these acrylic washers that we had here? Well, we're going to use them as a spacer between the two faces. So they should stick together like this with a nut on the left side. We'll leave the right side like that for now. Okay, and we left it like that so we can install this piece here. You're going to want to be very careful of this to not screw it on too tight because it's quite delicate, but you're going to use the other M3 by 14 bolt and the nut to attach this piece like so. Lastly, for this piece, we are going to get out of the servo kit another one of those 2 wing arms. So not the one with 1 arm or the one that has the 4. We want the 2 wing one, and then additionally we want to get those screws out of that same kit. Okay, so then we just screw it on like so to our piece here. Okay, and now we'll be ready to attach to our servo. Okay? Before we connect the servo, we should first make sure all the wires are connected and run. The first of which is the camera, which we need to pop out this black piece in order to stick the cable of the camera into the port. So before we attach the pieces together, we want to run the cable. So first, run the camera cable like so. So you want to loosen that piece, and with the blue side facing so, you want to stick it in. First, you should have loosened that, and then stick it in, and then stick that back in like so. Okay, so you need to pull this out, and then stick it back in once you've stuck the camera cable in. Okay, make sure that's nice and secure there. That locks our camera cable in. Okay, and then get the wire for the ultrasonic sensor. Okay. And then just pay attention to where it says GND, and Echo, Trig, and VCC. I'm going to stick VCC to the white one and GND to the red one. You might have this flipped. Actually, that would be more accurate. But you just want to keep note of where it says VCC, on what wire it says VCC, and on what wire it says GND. Okay? And make sure it's on there. It might be a little bit tough, be delicate, but it should go on like so. Okay? Okay, now here's a very important piece. You are going to attach the servo to the other piece here. Make sure you don't get these wires too tangled up. You're going to very carefully, emphasis on very carefully, attach these servos to the separate pieces. So the top servo should connect to the camera head like this. And it should kind of click in there. It might be a little bit loose, but you just want it to go flush like so. There might be a little bit of wobble, but that's okay. If you try to force it any farther than that, it will actually probably break something. Okay, and then you're going to want to stick the other piece down into the Pi. So if I move this stuff out of the way, I'm going to now attach the fully assembled head into the Pi. So remember here we had this arm that we installed at the very first step. Well, now we're going to carefully, with all the wires moved out of the way and not tangled together, we're going to install the bottom servo onto our completed board below. Okay? So very carefully, do not use too much force here. Attach the head to the base, like so. Okay. Now, get this piece here that is just going to connect our GPIO pins on our Pi to the board, as you can see here. Okay, so just connect it like so. So it should line up with the bottom, and you want to push it in until they're sticking out of the left side here. So you should be able to feel them poking out like so. This connects our board to our Raspberry Pi. Okay, and now we are going to connect the cables. Okay, so first loosen up this camera port, and with the camera facing the following way, the blue facing this way, we are going to stick it into the camera port. Should go in there nice and smooth if we put it the right direction, and then click down the camera port. So now it should be in there securely. Okay, so now we are going to connect servo 0 and servo 1 to the board. Servo 0 is the servo connected to the board at the base, and servo 1 is the servo on top of that. So you see I connect servo 0, the bottom servo, to the port that says servo 0, and I connect servo 1, the servo on top, to the pins that say servo 1. And you notice there I make sure that the orange wire matches the yellow pin and the brown wire matches the black pin. Okay, and then the last wire we have to run here. Again, remember I said that I have VCC on the white, so I'm connecting the white to 5 volt, and then I said I had GND on the red, so I'm connecting red to GND. So just make sure, if anything, your GNDs should match. So GND on red to GND on red, or GND on white to GND on white. And with that, you are done building your smart car.